What's up, Rockstars? Today I have the pleasure of reviewing Solomon Kane for you. Now, this is based off the Wave 1 that they've already delivered. This is the core box. This is what you get when you back the game. And there's a lot to go over. So I'm going to go over a little bit high level about the gameplay just to remind everybody, because I know it's been a while. And then I'm going to get into a whole bunch of pros and cons. This is going to be a little bit of a detailed one. As you guys know, I tend to be that way. So just be prepared for that. Get comfortable. Grab some snacks and we'll get to it. Now, as always, I'd like to start out with a quick thank you to my patrons and YouTube members. It is through their financial support that I'm able to stay completely independent from the game studio, so that I do not do any paid reviews or paid unboxings or paid anything. I do not accept any money whatsoever from these game developers, so that I can give you my honest opinion and not my wallet's opinion. If you appreciate that kind of critique and honesty in the board game space, there is a link down below if you are so inclined. But if not, that's fine too. A simple like, a thank you, a comment saying that this video was helpful. Trust me, that makes it all worthwhile, and I do appreciate it. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and do a quick overview of the game. Now, this is just a very casual kind of explanation, so you can just kind of listen and, maybe you remember a lot of this, maybe you don't. But suffice it to say, you are being, you are playing a virtue, and all of the virtues control Solomon Kane. They do that by rolling 3 dice on their turn, right? So you roll the 3 dice, and then you can place your dice based off of the symbols on the board that you have, or perhaps even another person's board if you're playing, more than one player. There's some rules around that. And you're doing different things like that allows you to talk to somebody, or fight, or explore, or move, or any number of things. You can lay down light, which is good to light his path, and you can have an aura, and you can help him that way as well, and increase his stats, and do various things like that to help him on his journey as he's trying to essentially fight the darkness and wherever he might find that. That is the core gameplay loop. There's these discovery cards that you'll get at the start of each mission, whether it is a scene. A scene is something like this, right? It has a map to it where it tells you where all the enemies go and kind of what the objective is, what the outcome is, and maybe some special rules and stuff like that. And of course, story. Story is going to be really important here. And then also whatever discovery cards you have, how many turns you have, which is your darkness cards, and then any fight cards you might have as well. There are also scenes that are not scenes, but stories. And stories are more straightforward. Stories are just like this. So stories just have, most of it is light the path. Sometimes it's just a decision you make. It just depends on what it is, but you're still rolling dice and doing all that kind of stuff. You still have a limited amount of cards and discovery, but there's no map. You're not moving Solomon Kane around and doing stuff like that. Of course, when it comes to all these thematic games, there are exceptions to pretty much everything I just said when it comes to what it is you're doing and when and how and all that, just to fit the need of the story and what it is you're having to do there. Enemies are controlled by a darkness deck like this. So you just flip it over, and it'll say what happens in the story. It'll say what happens to enemies or people near you, and what happens to people away from you, and maybe you spawn a shadow, maybe you don't. These are like sentries and scouts and hunters, and they all have different AI and like what they'll do, and there's all sorts of different stuff. Maybe they're seeking something, maybe they're just causing problems, maybe they're hunting something, all sorts of stuff. Now, when you're interacting with these things, you'll be interacting with your stats, your strength, your clarity, your compassion, your danger. Your strength is for fighting, your clarity is for exploring, and your compassion is for talking. And then the danger is how many shadows can be there, and obviously if you go too high in the danger, you lose, or if you lose all of your strength, or all of your clarity, or all of your compassion, you also lose. So you really have to manage that as well. It supports either solo through Providence to a 2-player kind of versus mode, all the way up to 5 players with somebody still playing the darkness. And of course, you can actually incorporate that darkness into any of the of however many players are playing, whether it's 2, 3, 4, and then of course 5 it's required. There is a shared pool of stuff. Every now and then you'll get stuff like a white cube, which is kind of your mercy cube. It allows you to be able to place not match a symbol, right, and still fill that out. Then, of course, you have your lucky cubes as well that go into the common pool. They allow you to redraw a card because when you're using these stats, you're actually going to flip over an event card and they'll have numbers down here. And depending on what it is you're doing, Solomon Kane uses this far one here because he's a hero. You'll add, like, this is a 4 and he has a +1 in his strength. So if he's doing a fight action, that is now 5, not 4. And so you can increase it that way along with auras and a whole bunch of other stuff. But maybe you drew a really low number there. So you want to draw another one. Well, you can get rid of that green card and then just keep going that way. So that's a fight effect. So that was the wrong card, but you get the idea. That's really the synopsis of it. You're just going to kind of have to go around. You have a limited amount of turns. You will have your virtue cards. So you'll have 4 of these, but then you're going to lay 2 of them down. So you're able to add more abilities. And these abilities can do all sorts of stuff. And sometimes they have different options that they can do as well. The only other really cool token I want to call out is these blessings. So you have blessings like this that you can get that are also shared and anybody can use them. And they can do all sorts of cool stuff, like at the start of a turn, you roll 4 extra dice. That's really powerful. Or it adds 2 to all of your stats, strength, clarity, and compassion. Not danger, because that'd be bad. So those are very powerful, but normally pretty expensive to do. There are a few exceptions where sometimes there can be a wild. That's the cross here, but sometimes you have to have the wild. But you can put it on any other one. Sometimes there's a question mark cube where it doesn't matter what cube you do. Sometimes it's not a cube, but instead you have to subtract 1 strength to be able to activate it. All sorts of different things are in this, so you can kind of do that. The only other, I think, major thing is a turn order. So at the start of the round, you get to decide who goes first, second, third, and fourth. And that is something you can decide at the start of each round and change it up as you see fit. But that really comes into play on when and how you do things. If you need to fight and there's one virtue is better at fighting than another, you want them to be able to fight, which means you need to move that person first. So you have to move Solomon Kane over there, or perhaps you have to move your virtue somewhere else so their aura is affecting him, all that kind of stuff. That's it. That's all I'm going to say about the kind of story structure. Now I'm just going to get into the actual critiquing of it. Now, before we get into this, I'm going to do this review slightly different than normal. Normally, I go straight from the components, right? In other words, how you experience the game. You first unbox it, right? And you look at everything. Then you read the rulebook. So here's my critique on the rulebook. And then you start, actually setting things up. Well, here's my critique on the setup and, all that kind of stuff. But I'm actually going to do it a little bit different now, just because I think it fits this game better. And I want something to be said up front before I get into the critiques. Additionally, there are timestamps below, a lot of them, and they specify all of my pros and cons. There's also a image at the end of the video that I'll also call out that lists all my pros and cons and notes if I have any that you can kind of reference as well. But if you want to go back to a certain part, or if you don't care about a certain part, you can navigate that to your heart's content. So hopefully you appreciate that. It takes a little bit of time to do, but I think it makes this video a lot better for it. Okay, so the first thing I want to say before anything, and it's a positive, is that this game is thematic. There's a reason I'm saying this first, but first I want to do the normal kind of pro. So the game just oozes that kind of RPG story feel. It is the most narrative game I own at this point, by far. Everything, even baked into the mechanics, just are all about the story. So let's take just this example, for instance, and this is just to make sure I have it. It's the werewolf one, right, that you get. It's a 1 act, 9-10 chapter kind of story that I've played through. Solomon Kane comes up and essentially there's a mob throwing stones at this guy, calling him a werewolf and all this kind of stuff. And so then you have the decision right up front on, okay, do I fight the mob or do I try to save him? Either way, Solomon Kane does not agree with any kind of mob or lynch justice, right? He's a Puritan and it's just against his code of ethics. But he can handle that different ways, right? So he's still in character, but you get to kind of decide how he decides to resolve that. Either he can fight the mob or he can save the guy that's, getting in trouble. This is the map setup if you decide to save the guy who's getting in trouble and kind of, help him escape. The same map would be here, though it doesn't have to be the same map. And in this case, it's the same map, but it's set up a lot differently. You're not on horseback and all that. In other words, you get down off your horse and have to deal with a mob. I have not played that scenario because I didn't choose that decision. I chose to help him. So this has you at the edge of town, right? You're just now riding in and he's on horseback. This is the guy who's getting in trouble. And essentially every time he gets into a spot with a villager, they hurt him. right? And he can die, right? So that's obviously not good. So what you need to actually do is get to him and then actually bring him onto your horse and then escape out of town. So you have to like navigate through here and get towards the end there, out of town into the woods, right? That's kind of the scenario. Now, what's cool about this, and especially as if you play as the darkness as well, is the reason it's called darkness is because the whole idea is there's this kind of darkness that makes bad things happen, right? That's kind of at play. And Solomon Kane's really attuned to that darkness, right? So he can really kind of sense when darkness is afoot, right? When they're like things are happening because darkness is manipulating things. And one of the darkness's abilities is that they get to choose which darkness card to do, right? So they have two options and they can decide what's the worst one. And one of the things that they'll do on this one is obviously try and get him into villagers, right? So no matter which way he turns, he's running into these villagers and he's getting hurt. And that's literally the darkness controlling him and, manipulating the scenario. There are these explore tokens, and as you get to them, you explore them, and it's stuff like villagers are like dropping carts in front of you, and you have to deal with that. But it just layers on the theme even more. So let's say you actually finally get to him, and you pick him up, and now he'll follow you, and he'll be in the same space as you kind of escape. Even still, as you run into these villagers, your compassion actually goes down as you kind of have to get frustrated with the villagers as you're trying to deal with it. You get a little less and less compassionate about it. That being said, because you chose to save him, the start of it actually says that you get +2 compassion. Now, you didn't know that when you made the decision, but that's where that decision... In other words, you're not doing a violent thing, you're just trying to save him, right? And so you had compassion for this guy, even though he's probably a werewolf. I mean, unless he strapped a character whose nose calling him a witch kind of thing, they probably have a reason for saying that. And he could tell instantly, like, he's looking at him, he's like, he kind of has a look about him, right? Because he's attuned to this kind of stuff. So you're kind of... like, this whole mission is just you navigating through the streets, trying to not run into all these villagers that, and as you do, he's getting more and more frustrated until you finally break free. And it's just such a cool synopsis of how thematic this game is, that it really oozes it. But it gets even more than that. So I have a card here. This is called the Transformation. So yeah, I mean, guess what? In the werewolf thing, there is a werewolf. I don't think that's a spoiler. If so, I do apologize. If that there's a werewolf in the werewolf story. Anyway, he starts with 3 bad tokens and 2 good tokens. And the idea is if he gets to 5 bad tokens, then he transforms. So he's like in the middle of transforming. You can actually try and talk to him and say, fight from the inside, to like slow it down. Meanwhile, there's a guy that's like trying to, get his like silver bullet gun and all that. So you're just trying to buy him time if you can. Now, the odd thing is if you fail the talk with him, you actually get a bad point, right? And at the end of your turn, you get a bad point. So if you try to talk to him and you fail, not only does your turn end, but you failed, and suddenly he's transformed just like that. Now that's not fair, but it's not supposed to be fair. The whole idea is that it should be really hard to be able to talk a werewolf from transforming, right? So it's hard on purpose. It's almost impossible on purpose. You can do it, but it's really, really hard. Additionally, the fact that it starts with 3 and 2, because the whole idea is as you lay good points down, the bad points go away. So if it starts with 2, then that should negate the 2, right? The reason that there's a 3 and a 2, because it could just be a 1 going to 3, it'd be the same math, right? Going from 3 to 5 with 2 good already there is no different than if you start at 1 and you go to 3. You still have just as many failures to do it. The reason it has you place these, even though they're not necessary from a mechanical standpoint, is because it's supposed to show that conflict. That idea that he's still trying to fight, right? He's still in the middle of it. There's still a little bit of him there, and that's those 2 good tokens. So even though you could simplify it, even though it's an extra point just to put those on there, you shouldn't have to mechanically. Thematically, it makes sense. And this, more than anything, I think, sets the tone for the rest of this review. This game will do whatever it needs to do to be thematic. Whether that's fair or not, whether that's way harder than it should be, or the whole idea is it should be, right? So it might not seem like a very cool thing that, you can't really talk him out of it. It gives you the option, and you can try, but it's going to be kind of hard. And that's on purpose because it should be kind of hard and you probably will fail, but you can succeed. And that's the whole point is just like Solomon Kane, you still want to try and you still want to see if you can do it. Maybe we can. And then of course it fails. And then when you have to fight him, there's a point where you can't kill him. You don't have a silver bullet. So like, what are you going to do? Like you can't really do a lot. You can just try and do good enough with them to where you're not like ravaged and just like destroyed as a person. But that kind of theme is just throughout every single part of that, from the setup here and how it tells you to do different things here to, there's one where you're having to like get these, potions essentially, and you're actually on the discovery card. I don't know if I can find it real quick. They actually show it in the rulebook. Yeah. So right here, you have this little potion belt that one of the NPCs have that actually becomes one of your companions. And you're able to actually go to all these different explore things and get the different stuff and then concoct different combinations of tokens to make different potions. Kind of like, just a very cool little mini game that you can do. Well, you can, if you're lucky, you can get the one you need, the like lycanthrope cure, right? Right away. And you can end it right there. But if you do, then the next story is essentially the guy saying, dude, we need to make more. And it allows you to just keep doing it if you so choose. And you're better off for it. But it allows you to just, Solomon Kane just be like, okay, we got it. Let's go. And then literally it supports the guy then saying, no, actually, you probably shouldn't go back and do it. You'll see that everywhere in this game. And it's so important to understand that because if you go in this I'm a mechanical centric person, right? So when I was coming across stuff like this is no different than if I just had one token and needed 3. Why do you having me put these good tokens there? And I'm yelling at Leo, like, why is this here? This shouldn't be a thing. And mechanically that's correct, but thematically it's not. And once that flipped in my head and once I really understood what this was doing, I enjoyed it so much more. With that out of the way, and I know that was long, let's go ahead and get into all of the pros and the cons. Alright, so let's actually start, after a little bit of gushing there, with some little nitpicks and some issues that you might come across. One of the things that is kind of a counterpoint to what I just said is this event deck. So as you're getting events, these happen when a darkness gets into your spot. Essentially, the darkness goes away and an event happens, right? Something happens to Solomon Kane, is what that is thematically saying, which, okay, that's cool. And you might get a dwindling resolve, right, is what it's titled. And it says, a virtue discards their left-hand action card, so somebody has to discard their action card. Hopefully you didn't want that one. And then -1 to their strength unless courage miniatures on the board. So again, if the courage miniature is there and she's giving, she's giving him courage, so he won't get weakened, but he could, and that goes to the dwindling resolve. That is thematic, but I feel it could be more. And the reason I feel it could be more is because there is almost always a lot of space on here, and I feel just a little bit of description, a little bit of flavor text under dwindling resolve would work. So if it could actually say, he has a sudden dread and, he feels, a little bit tired of all this and is just, weakening his drive to complete his task or something like that. And the reason I say that is because when you have these like fight effects, that's exactly what they have down here, right? They have the title, they have the thing. This is just like an event card here, but then down here, they have that little flavor text that just adds a little bit to it. And I really enjoyed that, just like I enjoyed all of the thing here. And that's almost the one part where it's still mechanically thematic. And there's a little bit by the name of the event, but I wish they would have added just a little bit more. It gets to the point where they have these fight cards, and all these fight cards do is if you depending on your test, you have a little blurb that you read, and then you have a sequence of events that also happen, and that's all that these do, are just adding more theme to it. So, it's not just that you pushed like I had one where I pushed a wolf out, but I didn't push a wolf out. I picked him up and threw him into the other wolves and knocked them back. Right. And then he lumbered back and did all this other stuff. And it's reading like you're reading a book, almost, where it's like it visually encapsulates, or not audibly, but it through its text, it encapsulates what's happening mechanically. The event cards, a little bit less so, would have liked it more there. Additionally, and this is kind of a bummer print issue, but things can be a little dark. So I'm going to zoom in here for you. Alright, so now you should be able to see these cards here. Hopefully it's actually showing up pretty good on my camera, but this right here is an event. And luckily it says event here because you can't really read that. And that's because the event card itself is fairly dark. But on a big card, you can see it. On this little text, not so much. That could have easily been there's darkness down there, right? Same thing there. And then, of course, there's this kind of dark text here. And actually, this danger is better. If I got a sin one, which I don't think I have with me right now, I might be able to actually find one real quick. These sin cards, I mean, are even, I guess this is a little bit easier because it's on a light. These are nightmare cards or harder cards. Again, very cool. But if you get one that says sin, it's a dark purple instead of even a blue. Very hard to see. So there is some text there that's just difficult to see. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that you can't play it. It does say the event, and you can see the event, but you're going to hold it up. Okay, yeah, that's an event card. In case it says maybe that it doesn't say event afterwards. But playable, but definitely a little bit of an eye strain, and it could have been, had a little bit of a glow of white around it or something like that. Okay, now I'm going to keep going in with these negatives just to really pound it home. There are plenty of positives too. I'm about to actually swap to it, but there are, a few little things that are kind of an issue. One of the issues I had is the binding on these are too tight. So what you end up doing is actually bending a lot of them as, in fact, you might even be able to see it bent there, but just as you're trying to go through, like, okay, see how right now it's bending this? Like it's not, you can try and like, there, now it's there. And so now I have this nice little kind of fold line here, and it just is a little too tight as you're trying to see. So here it is again. It's normally, a problem spot on one of them. And in this book, it's kind of up here for whatever reason. And sometimes, I mean, like right now I have this page in here. I can, there, kind of not fold too much. There we go. Could have been a little bit nicer. So if we go on the outside here, you'll see that kind of, maybe that little bit of a bend. Maybe not. I'm not going to zoom in on it too much. You can just believe me. It's not worth, driving home by. But could have been a little bit, I think, bigger, just so those pages could really flip around a little bit easier. Because it is nice that it's there, because then it takes up this much space instead of this much space all the time, right? Which is nice. There it is bent again. And it could have just been a little bit thicker. Additionally, one of the issues with these components is that the tiles are a little bendy. So, like, I have another one here, right? And if I put this here, you'll see that, again, it has that little bit of a bend here. A lot of them are like that. If you get two of them together like this, they almost like overlap, right? Where it's like tectonic plates, where earlier one starts going underneath the other one. Kind of a bummer, because otherwise everything's fantastic. So let's talk about that. All right. So the miniatures themselves, particularly, are fantastic. These miniatures look great. I'm going to go and zoom in as I talk about it so you guys can kind of see it. But you guys saw a lot of this in the unboxing. But as you can see, I mean, they look great, right? Here's darkness here. They just look really, really good. They're very well made. Most of them, like 90% of them, have that sculpted base that look really, really nice. And they're just, again, I mean, they're really, really well done. Sadly, there's no Kelpie miniature here. It would have been cool if they had a Kelpie. I don't know if they existed in the Solomon Kane world or not, but, no game's perfect, right? But if you can add a Kelpie, it's always better. But anyway, they just look really, really good. They're very well assembled. So he's put on that, but it's glued very, very well. And, they're just really, really good miniatures. And again, just components in general are good, with just the exception being those kind of boards. This strength tracker, again, is like solid. I mean, it's great. And you get these plastic, tokens to be able to look at things. You get plastic spawn tokens. You get a north, south, east, west kind of a compass token here. That's nice and plastic. Really, really, really nice components. All right, another thing I want to gush about a little bit, because this is so much better than what I've seen from any other game like this. It reminds me a lot of Joan of Arc, but it's not all jacked up. It's actually really, really good. So at the start, when you grab this book, right, and now you have your book, and it has all of the, like, everything you need in it right there. You might have a rule book here as well with the references in it. But what's nice here is at the very beginning, it tells you exactly what you need. You're going to use well, okay, you might not, right? Depending on your decisions, some of these might not be used, but everything in this to play is right here. All the tiles you need, all of the miniatures you need. That's great. There is a minor nitpick. I'm just putting it as a note here verbally for you guys. I'm not even going to mark it down. Is it doesn't tell you the tokens, and there are some times where tokens aren't used, in which case I would like to not take them out. So I wish it told me tokens as well for the whole arc, but it's fine if it's not, I guess. That's okay too. This is still really nice to have, because then you can have them all there, and you don't even need the miniatures box at all. You can put that away. That whole box is now gone. You don't need that near. You don't need to go back and get it. It would also be kind of nice maybe if it told you really just the tokens, I think, are the only thing that are missing there, that I think is pretty defined in what you would need. There's other stuff as well that maybe nightmare cards, but there's some things that can spawn that. Same with sin cards. So maybe you still need to take those out. Also, all the fight effect cards, it would be kind of nice to have that. They're just numbered, and as long as you don't read the title, I guess it's not a spoiler. But I mean, at the end of the day, I already see this giant wolf here, right? I'm already seeing that I need the alpha wolf. Well, it's fine if I get the alpha wolf fight card. It would be nice just to take just the fight cards I need too. So I just have literally just what I need. And then the discovery deck is already pre-built with the everything that you need there. Speaking of the cards, one of the nice things is everything is numbered. And I mean everything. These fight cards, right? They all have a unique name. They still have a unique number, even an A and B side to that. Even your virtue cards, which do not need to be numbered, are still numbered. They numbered even the virtue cards. So, and I guess what's kind of nice there is, if you have all of them, you could count as well, but then you would know, I'm missing 3, I guess, or something like that. But almost not even needed, right? And they still did it, just in case. You can never go wrong with numbering a card. That way you know exactly what mission it goes to, or what expansion, or whatever it might be. And I think that was very nice to see, actually. All right, I got a few more positives before we're going to flip back to negatives before flipping back to positives. So it's going to be like a roller coaster of a review for you guys. The player count and the ranges that it supports is really good. Now, I don't know how a lot of reviewers do it, but I like to play a lot of sessions if I can from multiple campaigns, which I've done, multiple player counts. I have played at solo. I actually played this game solo. More on that probably later. 2-player and 3-player, and then also 3-player with the darkness as well. So it's only 2 co-op with 3. Just to get a sense of, especially the 2 with 1 as darkness, kind of maybe an unusual thing, but I personally like fighting against another person. And it's not even that you're fighting with them, right? But when you know a player is purposely taking this traveler dude and picking the one just to get him to hurt, it feels really good when you get an event and you're able to counter and take that, or you just feel better about it, right? Whenever you're fighting against somebody, it is harder fighting against a person because they do get to make that decision. So they're going to pick the one that's worse all the time. It's not the random draw anymore. It's darkness is purposely trying to make that harder, and it is a little harder. But it's so much more satisfying, my opinion. But anyway, it plays well at all of them. This solo one is also pretty good as well. I'm not a heavy solo player. In fact, this is the second time I've ever played solo on a game. The only time I've ever enjoyed it. Says a lot right there, I suppose. In the rulebook, it does mention that it can be a little bit harder, or it can be easier depending on the mission. For instance, there are some times where it's like, it would be nice to have more people here to be able to do these different things, or to be at different parts of the board, especially, right? Because you can have a virtue here and a virtue here, and moving her is kind of difficult. In fact, it'd almost be better to shockwave her out and then drop her back in, my opinion, which is something you can try to do. So anyway, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, but it also says that in the rulebook, it's like, hey, it just depends on what mission you're doing. It can be a little flip-floppy, and of course, it's by default a little bit harder playing against a darkness player, just because they get to pick and choose what to do, and so they're going to pick the harder one, the one that has the better meta, difficulty to it. So there's that as well. But again, it just all plays super well. And in fact, one of my favorite things was actually with the darkness player. So I am a big fan of shared resources. I love the idea of, I can choose to do this, and it'd be really good if I do this, but then I know I'm giving these to you. And I don't want to give those to you because you can do this right back. And that's what this game does. So there are 2 symbols here. I think it's pain and fear that you can do. And anytime you use those, which you might have to, because it's marked there, unless you, again, have a wild die or maybe a wild here as well. Either way, if you use those, darkness gets it. And then darkness gets to use them there. And the things they do are not good. And for instance, one of the things she can do is remove your light. And like if you're playing as Providence, if you're doing that 2-player thing, some of it might be like +1 to her aura size. So instead of just a bubble here, it's a bigger bubble, and you're planning on that, and now suddenly ruined your test because now you're not getting all of that bonus. That kind of stuff can really, really get you. And so nasty stuff. But I really, really liked the idea that they get my dice. I didn't like it, but that's what made me like it, because you're not supposed to like that. So that was really, really cool as well. Okay, let's throw a few negatives out there too, because no game is perfect, and neither is Solomon Kane. The easy missions in this game are like dumb easy. Like you could play them in your sleep. So for instance, I played The Hand of Doom as well. That was another one that I played. And it was a fun one. It was thematic and it was cool. And it's a kind of an introductory one. It's one of the ones that there was actually a card in there that suggests, hey, play this one if you're first. And that's really nice. Don't get me wrong. But you could play through that without firing off too many brain cells. I mean, at the end of the day, like the last mission has something you kind of have to plan a little bit, but for the most part, it's just on rails. And I didn't enjoy those nearly as much. Like the story is still good and still interesting, but the rest of the game does such a better job at like making it like, hey, you want to try and talk a werewolf out of transforming while it's transforming? Good luck, but you can try, right? Like there's that kind of like difficulty of like, I just feel like how am I going to get through all these stupid villagers and not have my compassion just plummet, right? So you're trying to like manage your compassion up that too while you're going through there. Okay, you focus on getting the compassion up so that we have that up, and then I could do that. I'd like to move as well, but I can't do that either, and I can't do both, so I now have to make a decision. All that kind of stuff is great in all of the other ones, but there are a few really easy campaigns. And so when it comes to the quantity of stuff you're getting, right, all the stuff you're getting, you can't really, it pales in comparison. So it's kind of like saying you don't have, I don't know how many books are in this box right now. Let's say there are 10 different stories. Well, really, you have 3 tutorials and 7 stories, if you want to put it that way, because they're pretty easy. And there's another end too, where they're really hard. And that actually is kind of another negative. They need to have some kind of rating system on there so you know what you're getting into. I think it even could have been worded heavier, like, hey, play these first, trust us. That they are going to add that. I have confirmed that already, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in the review. They will be adding that, but that is after the fact. It would have been nice to have Conan shows like the difficulty up there by how many people are there and stuff. Like it just a general sense of, okay, is this going to be a difficult one or an easy one? Because they're not all the same. Some are harder than others. And I actually really enjoy that. In fact, another positive of mine is that you can customize the difficulty, whether it is playing against a darkness player, right? Or whether it's the fact that you want to add some nightmare cards in there. You can add these. There's nothing stopping you from adding some of these. It just means that they're meaner, right? You could, if you really wanted to, even start taking away darkness cards, but I think you're getting a little kind of iffy there. But even in the rulebook, it talks about how you can add those nightmare cards, or you can play against a darkness player. Have one of your players play that. It's more difficult. If you don't have all 4 of the provinces or the virtues out, that is a little bit more difficult too. Now you get to use their board as if it was yours, but they're not laying down their 2 other options, and so you lose out on a little bit of their versatility that they would otherwise be. So there are a lot of ways to be able to make this more difficult, and I really enjoy that, just because that means I didn't play all 3 of the easy mode ones, but now when I go back to them, I plan on actually making it a little bit more difficult, just so it's a little bit more interesting. Just my personal preference. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. And that's what's great too. You can just play through it normal as intended, and that's fine too. But really liked that option. Okay, more positives. I have a lot here. So, and I'm actually going to choose not to mention all of them. And at the very end, I will say, and I'm not mentioning this or this cool thing or this and that. Just because you don't need every little thing. I'm just trying to drive home the pillars, right? That are holding up this game in a good light or a bad light, right? One of the things that I really, really enjoyed was that aura reveal. So your miniature actually stands here. This is your virtue, and she will provide an aura, but only when you put it on the board does she have the aura, and then it'll actually say in there what the aura is. So you literally reveal your aura, and that's how you get that. And it's just something a little like that is such a great design choice that I thought it was quite nice to have. Like, it's just a neat little thing that your miniature's right there. First of all, it's just cool to have your miniature there, but then when you're on the board too, you see, and you have that reminder right there. I always like when on the game board or on the components, the rules are a reminder there. And they have that as well here with the reroll and the flip, which is another positive. Anytime you have dice in a game, right? Anytime you have dice, you want to be able to either mitigate or manipulate or both luck. Luck is fun, randomness is fun, we all get that, right? And there is a little bit of a difference between revealing an event card and seeing a random number that you have no, like, you can actually get, again, those green to redraw that, but otherwise, like, you didn't really do anything for that, but you can, for instance, on here, choose to roll another die, and then you go ahead and roll those, and then you can flip or you can re-roll. The flip is nice because it's the opposite symbol, so the plain circle goes to the spiked circle, the empty heart goes to the full art. And then there are actually 2 of the crosses, and again, those are wild, so you can put them on anything. And additionally, you have the white cubes. There's enough here to where you don't feel frustrated. One of the worst things about a dice placement game is if you don't have those. It can be incredibly frustrating. You should just roll and be like, well, I can't do what I want to do because I didn't happen to roll the magical thing and I have no way of changing that. There's so much in here that allows you to be able to do that. You always have that re-roll and flip, which is, again, great. Other people can donate dice. You can reserve dice. So it's like, oh, I don't have enough to do that yet. I'm going to go ahead and reserve it. Now, of course, again, everything impacts everything. It's all interconnected. So there are darkness cards that can make you lose your reserve. Or one of the worst ones I had from darkness is she can make you actually flip them all to a specific spot. And it's actually the hollow heart one that she gets back. So it's like, I needed those. That's why I saved them. So between saving, between donating, between playing on other people's cards, between allowing you to have more options with the 2 other cards, with the re-rolls or the flips or the white cubes, there is enough here to really interact with these dice at a level that most, I think, dice placement games don't provide, at least the ones I've played. And I really enjoyed that. It's actually a lot of fun, surprisingly. And honestly, it's a good thing that you can, because like I said, this game can get difficult. It can get difficult because of circumstance. For instance, if you don't do good at another one, you might not do good there. One of the things you can do when you're actually going through here and you're lighting up the path is if you light up his path, you get bonus attributes. You get to finally, increase your compassion if it dropped really low, or lower that danger if it got really high. That's super important, because if you don't take care of this, you're going to lose through that, and that is never a good thing. It's always a major failure if you lose by stats. So you don't want to lose by stats. You don't just want Solomon Kane to give up or pass out, or whatever it might be, or things just to get too dangerous. So that is really important, just to manage everything and really try and be efficient at it, because you can lose, and you can lose forward, which is nice, but you can also just lose, right? I mean, that's a real thing too. And bad situations can get worse, right? So if you failed to talk him out of transforming, well, he's transformed. And then if you fail to fight him off there, well, that's bad too. Or if you failed to save him here, well, the story's gonna not go in a way that you're probably gonna like. It's gonna be more difficult. Or if you didn't get all those potions, right? He even says like, hey, you probably want more potions. But if you're like, no, let's go. Okay, but it's gonna be a little difficult. And so I really like the difficulty, both thematically and just as a player that likes mechanics and making choices and finding that kind of min-max a little bit, right? Where you're trying to just play really, really well and organize everybody's turn. Like, okay, well, you go first and then I'll go after that. And then if you fail that, I'll have to do this, and that would be bad, but I guess I can lay this card down just in case, but it sucks to waste it, and I can decide whether or not that's worth it or not. And that's really, really cool. Which actually leads me to another thing. These virtue cards are rough, because there are times where they're completely useless, and you're like, okay, I'll lay that down just so I can get rid of it. But what I really, really want is this one, right? And you can do that, but then what if they, you got to remove your left one. Well, that sucks. Now you're done with the waste one. So maybe you want to do, well, I'd like this one or this one, but now I don't have enough dice to do both. So I've now wasted opportunity. Even if I do get the dice, I have to pick, okay, which one do? I can't do both. So then one's wasted either way. So maybe you just want to waste the other one, but maybe you want the versatility of the two. Or there's that idea of, okay, do I want to maybe move her into position so my test is better, or do I just want to test now? I could test, or I could spend all the dice to do that, or maybe I want to save up to do that. But I'm running out of darkness cards. I only have 4 turns left, and by the time I try and fight this thing again, I'm going to have 3 or 2 turns left. That's if everything goes good and they don't manipulate that. And so, trying to decide what to do here is, again, it's rough because you're managing so much. Right, you're managing the light on here, or the objective, or moving, or attacking, or all that. Everything is a trade-off. When this is your resource, right, and it is such a finite resource, you're rolling 3. At Providence, you might be rolling 4, unless you're not in the aura, in which case maybe you want to move her, maybe you lost the light, maybe you need to put the light down there. But then you're not doing the thing which you're supposed to be doing, which is fighting, but maybe it'll help you in the future. Really, really good. There are so many hard decisions that you need to make that I really enjoyed just deciding what to play. Nonetheless, where to then put your results. Just really enjoyed that. The virtue cards were joy, for sure. Now, that being said, there is a negative with the virtue cards, and that's the amount. Now, it's not that this is a small amount. This is actually a nice size variety where you get really used to what your options are, that you realize that finesse can add or remove a darkness card. In other words, take a turn away from the darkness player, or add a turn if you need that extra little bit of turn. Good card, right? Or maybe you want, interrogation, where you can do a talk-based force. So it's a strong one, but then you actually lose your compassion because you're interrogating them, and that's built right into the card, which is cool. Do I want to lower my compassion again? But I'm a lot better at doing that talk test. There's all that kind of stuff, which is great. But you draw 4, right? And then you play 2, and then every round you get rid of those 2, and you draw 2 more, right? And then you'll play. And then at the end of that turn, okay, you're going to get rid of those. And then you draw 2 more. And now you have hit the end of your deck. So the next round, I now have to shuffle this and put this back. You will do this shuffle so many times. So many times. It is probably the more annoying. I found it to be the most annoying part of the entire game. Not that there were a lot of annoying parts, but just because I got annoyed at having to shuffle them all the time. I just wish there was maybe 2, even just 2 more. So I had to do it every 4 turns instead of every 3 turns. But it's like a guaranteed 3 turns. So every 3 turns, you will be shuffling your deck, which kind of sucks when there's 10 rounds in just this one, right? So you're doing it 3 times. You're going to be shuffling your deck, and I don't know. It just seems like it's. Part of that is this problem here. So while this is a great solo thing, because it's it does go pretty quick, right? I do my turn. I only get these 3 or 4 dice. I place them. Darkness goes, maybe, or maybe it's just AI. In which case, it just feels like, and not only that, but then you have to discard them. So you have your 4, and you lay them down, and then you roll. I mean, it goes real smooth, right? So you roll them, and then you decide, oh, okay, I can do this here, and I will save this one. I'm done. Now these are gone. Draw these 2, place them down. Now my turn's over. Now it goes to that turn because they can remove one you played, right, or something like that. And then I have to do it over again. And it goes really quick, where it just feels like between laying them down and then putting them away and then drawing them more and then laying them down, you definitely interact with these a lot. I would suggest sleeves if you are a person that sleeves. I played this quickly so I get this review out to you guys so you guys know what's coming up and whether this is good or not. And so my cards are already fairly damaged just from the amount of shuffling that is required from them. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, now the last positive I want to mention for a little bit is that I thought it actually handled everybody playing Solomon Kane really well. One of the gripes people had about the game Conan is that everybody wanted to play Conan. Now, I've played Conan enough to where I actually really like Conan's cool, but so are the other characters. Being able to teleport around, that's pretty sweet. Being able to just ninja your way everywhere and throw daggers, that's pretty sweet too. There are some great characters in Conan, but I get the idea, right? You want to play the name of the person. And here, nobody plays Solomon Kane, but you don't really feel that because you are moving him and you are attacking with him and you are making choices, right? I lay down these and he does something, right? And so you get that feel, which I know you're not playing him. You're playing Providence, or you're playing Courage, or you're, whatever, Compassion. It doesn't matter. That's a technicality. The feel you get is I am having Solomon Kane do something, or something is happening to me. And it's actually interesting to see Solomon Kane get attacked and everybody react to it, because it feels like everybody's being attacked. It handles actually really well, better than you would think. I was actually that was my most worried part of this, besides all this text, which I'll get to. I was really worried about that, but it ended up being not a problem at all. In fact, it actually ends up being really cool, because you can get that whole thing where when you're being attacked, everybody's being attacked, and like it keeps you invested there, right? Because it doesn't matter. Oh, you're being attacked. I mean, I care, but not really. Sorry, not sorry, right? It's not like that at all. You're invested in Solomon Kane 100% in all of his stats. Just because I'm controlling the Compassion doesn't mean I don't care when strength starts going low, because I do. And in fact, I might have to make him fight, and I won't be able to do it as well, especially with the negative now. So it ends up being really good. Everybody controlling Solomon Kane is a definite positive here. I think it just enhances the experience a lot more, because you are experiencing Solomon Kane's story 100%. Okay, now first I want to say a positive and then a negative about the same thing. So these are tied at the hip, very tightly. There is a lot of reading involved here. In fact, if you take all of Wave 1 and all of Wave 2, it's like you may as well read Lord of the Rings. Like, it is a ton of text. This is, I mean, you guys saw my unboxing. This is nothing. There are some that have 3 acts in them, very long things. You'll need your save sheet. There's a ton here. There's a lot of writing. It's all in English, and it actually reads pretty darn well. That's definitely positive. Anytime there's this much text in here, it's important that sentence structure flows well, especially when you know it's not written in English per se. So there's some oddities there as well. So the rule book reads well. All of the written text on these cards are pretty much a pleasure to experience, and that's a good thing. And it's not always the case in these games, right? I mean, even Mythic themselves have struggled with that in the past, but I can say right now, Solomon Kane, pretty darn solid. In fact, it has me looking at hell. With that said, there are some oddities. I find this a lot in translated texts, where they'll translate it to maybe the correct word, but it's like, so it's not how you would actually say it if you're a native, right? It's like, well, okay, yeah, but that's not the word choice I would have picked, right? There are some that are just odd though. Like, I was reading Into the Forest, and I read that there is a small garden out with growing many varieties. I mean, out with? What the heck is out with? So I'll Google it, and it's like some Scottish term, or like it's like, well, that ain't my English anyway. Hashtag not my English. I'd never heard of out with. So I go to like text Leo about it, and my Google keyboard is like, there's no out with. That's not a word. Like, those are 2 different words, sir. It just means outside, really, but it doesn't say there was a garden outside, which is how I would normally say it. It says there was a garden out with. It's like, okay, what the heck is out with? There was another one. I'll get to it. I'll make sure I try and pronounce it right. And this one, at least, like, Google's like, okay, yeah, that's a word. Okay, so we're picking herbs, right? That's what we do. We're making potions, right? Having a good old time with the herbalist there. And he says to me that by the light of the full moon, it is to be officious. EFFICACIOUS. If I remember in editing, I'll put that in post. Right there on the screen. Bam, right there. It's a word. It just means effective, really. I don't know anybody who wouldn't just say, hey, the full moon makes it effective. But instead of effective, it's efficacious or efficacious. It's effective. I'm king of average. I'm just an average dude. Maybe you guys aren't an average dudes. Maybe you guys are, or an average lady. Maybe you have a PhD in Scottish English. And you're like, oh, yes, out with. Okay, sure. I ain't down with that. I don't. So there's a little oddity there. I just want to point that out. You will see that from time to time. Considering there were 2 just in here that I like, literally, I pause. I'm like, I need to Google that word. I don't know what that is. And then sometimes it's like, that's not American English. That's why. I didn't see any color behavior. So I don't have enough to say if, it's just across the pond, they're royal English, versus our non-royal English. I don't know. I don't think so, because I think I would have seen other words that were spelled a little odd. They have to add like an extra E in there or something like that. I didn't see any of that, but there's just some oddity in the wording still. But by and large, solid stuff. And 2 words that I had to Google, I'm okay with that. In fact, I get a good laugh out of trying to say officious, whatever that word is. Okay, let's round this out. I got 2 more things to mention, and then we were going to just kind of do a high-level outro summary thing, and I'll let you guys go. Okay, so one of the things I really, really liked, and it's one of those things where you don't really notice the good it does until you get into the game. One of my favorite things about Conan, and I love the game Conan, is that I've played it with people, and it's always about halfway through their first time playing it that they realize they don't have health. Instead, you have like these stamina gems, and they are also your health. And so it's like this nuanced system that it's both what you can do and it's also your health. And every time a new player plays, it's like it dawns on one of them. They're like, wait a second, this is kind of like our health. And I wait for that. I'm like, yes, it is. They just doubled on one system. There you go. Now talk about like cream of the crop. Let's just keep what it is and have everything interact all together. Love it. This kind of has that too in these stories. So first of all, I guess before I get into that, the fact that there are story missions and scene missions are actually quite nice. At first, I thought these story missions were dumb. Part of it was because I was playing that really bog standard intro quest, right, where nothing was very difficult, and we were able to max out the light path each time. And it was like, okay, I mean, you should just have me read it and give me a bonus. Like, why did I bother trying to, like, I did it anyway. Like if I feel like it's like, no, if I'm gonna, like, it'd be hard to fail that, right? So just let me do it, right? With doing these stats are so important. And if you recall, I said if you get 3 or more, you have now lit the path, right? But if you get 4, or if you get 5, you get even more. If you get 3, you get to increase or decrease danger, right, by 1. For 4, it's 2, and for 5, it's 3. This is key to actually getting through the entire act and not screwing up badly. Because you will get, I mean, these stats are going to be attacked all the time, and you're going to have to be fighting to keep them up as much as possible. But invariably, you're going to start, you may be able to keep that high, but you're going to start getting more like this, or maybe even more danger, especially if you just let that go. It can get pretty bad. And once it's at 10, 1 more danger, and it's game over. Like, that is important to get down, which means it's important to actually do well in this, because you can knock that down 3. Which is huge. That means 1 less shadow. It means any danger roll is now only a +1 instead of a +3. And it means you have a lot more room to not worry about it so much. So you don't prioritize that. So maybe you can prioritize something else. That's really cool. It was one of those things where going through it, and that whole first one, I was like, guys, these stories are like, I want to be on the map, right? I want to be moving Solomon Kane and going pew pew and shooting that guy. And like, that's what I want to do. Right? Like, I want to fight this guy. That's cool. That's awesome. Let's get to that. Let's not read a story and then just play cards and like do almost a little imagination game kind of thing, right? I ended up really enjoying that. First of all, it was a break from this. It was kind of a little bit of a rest. This game is, another thing is it's a really good breaking point, right? You can go through this and then just stop after this before you get into that, or after this before you get into the next one. And it's a very good saving spot. As long as you know kind of, you know, where everything is, like, you're good to go. You don't have to remember locations or anything weird like that. It's a natural break, a natural kind of slight sigh of relief, because this can get pretty intense and get very hard. There were several times where I was down to the last, like, there was 1 more darkness card. Like, that was it. Right? I mean, it got close. And I was playing as hard as I could. So, anyway, that's really nice. I like the story, and I like the fact that it's actually your way to heal. Right? If you think because again, he doesn't necessarily have health, he has stats, right? So just like Conan, it's like, so this is kind of your health. It was that moment, but I had it myself and I loved it. When I realized that this is my health, it's just 4 layers of health, and each one's important, and each one's affecting different things. And this was my chance, like one of my very few, if only chance, to be able to heal my health. was a great realization, and I think very well done. And it's streamlined. It just plays naturally. You're doing this anyway. It's just on top of that. Hey, not only did you light his path, which means thematically he knows where to go next or what to do next, or the light outshines the darkness and what's going to happen next. So a good thing will happen, which normally means you get to start on the map and stuff like that. You set up a little different. Anyway, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. So I guess the only other thing I want to say is I want this to be the last thing because it ties into that very first thing I talked about, which was the theme. The branching storylines of these are great. It is kind of a bummer because you don't play everything, right? You skip a lot, right? Because like, oh, I didn't play that version of that, or oh, I didn't even play that map, or oh, I skipped this thing entirely, or like I've never played this. I want to play that version of it. Why is like that version looks kind of interesting. I don't know if I have to be really bad or I have to make another decision. Like next time this does replayable because of that, right? I can do this and next time I'm going to fight the mob. I'm going to fight the mob and see what happens there. And I might be to where can he die there? Does he transform into the city? I don't know. I'll have to see. There's a lot of it that's just slight variations, right? It's like, oh, you did better in the last one. Oh, that means now you get to start on the board and there's one less shadow, which is good, right? But it's like, that's not really the same thing. They will always have different text, but sometimes 90% of it's the same, right? So it might be, oh, you're fighting this, the werewolf or something, but in my version that was good, it was like, and you succeeded, and it was like, it ran away. Another one, it might be like, and it attacked the dude and then ran away. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, obviously it's different, but really the same too, right? You're reading almost a copy paste, right? It's like almost the exact same, but not quite. Either way, it supports a lot of replayability, and so you take each of these, and then you add the fact that you can play them at least twice to like purposely choose different things to explore different missions. And there's just a ton of content from that. And again, it's so thematic and what everything happens, and the fact that there could be A, B, C, and D version of the same map based off of all these variables is really cool. And I think it does. Again, it plays really, really well. So. What can I say? This, I think the most telling thing for me was the fact that I enjoyed playing solo. If you guys know, I make a big deal about spending time with friends and family when it comes to board games. It's why I spend so many hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on this hobby and buy all these really cool looking games so that I can spend it with the people that I like, and I can put away my phone. I can not watch TV. I can be away from it, unplug from Facebook and all of that, and just spend time with my kids, spend time with my wife, spend time with my friends. I don't do that enough. I work long hours. I do this whole YouTube thing as well. And the highlight of this YouTube thing is when I get to play a game. I have to for the channel. No, when I get to play a game with my family and friends, I love it. I celebrate all the time. We'll order pizza, we'll make some good food, or we'll make an evening of it. And it's honestly, it's great. So I don't normally play solo. That's not I'll play a video game. I play a lot of video games when I used to have time, and I love them. And so if I just want to sit out and veg out and do that, that's fine. This game got me playing solo. and enjoying it a lot. The stories are really, really good. The mechanics are really great, and they're integrated into the story. It's not some side thing. As an example, Tainted Grail has a story, right? It's the story is kind of written like, I'll take, I guess, so for Tainted Grail, but then they have that like combat, right, where you're talking to somebody, you're building those card combos, but it's like this wholly separate thing that's thematic, but it's not really attached to everything else. Whereas this, I'm laying down light that can then get affected by that then affects my stats, that then affects the decision I make and the next thing I do there and stuff like that. Because you could say, like, could you attack the mob? Well, I don't know, our strength isn't very high, maybe we don't there. That was only there because of a decision we made in the story and stuff like that. And so everything is so well attached that I really, really enjoyed it. And I kept thinking about it too. I mentioned this in my Twisted Fables review as well, if you remember, where I just found myself thinking about different like deck builds and combos of heroes and different strategies and builds within that hero and all this other kind of stuff. And well, what if the relic cards look this way? And I had the same thing with Solomon Kane. And I think, again, that just speaks to me more about whether or not the game was a good experience or not than almost anything else I mentioned, right? Yes, you might have some bendy boards. Yes, you might have to shuffle more than I might like. But at the end of the day, this was such a great experience with the game. It was fun. Like I said, rolling these dice with the manipulation. I love manipulating dice. I love being able to roll dice all the time. That's great. Using this thing to where I can roll 4 extra. You know how much more fun it was to roll 8 dice because I was playing as Virtue and her thing had me rolling 4 dice? Rolling 8 dice was great. And it felt so powerful to lay them all down on there. And I was able to use them all and to stack up my reserve and have a good turn next time too. And it's so much fun. And then you're going against the person and that they're choosing to, move the shadow here and do that because, they're being mean or whatever. Just great stuff. Picking your action cards, a ton of fun mechanically. And the fact that every single one of those mechanics is tied so strongly to a great theme, I enjoyed it a lot and I recommend it. It's actually really good. I liked this more than any other game Mythic Games has made. I liked it more than Super Fantasy Brawl. I liked it more than Mythic Battles Pantheon, at least the 1.0. Mythic Battles Pantheon, I think, is very, very good, and maybe I'm falling back on my words now. I really like Skirmish too, so Mythic Battles Pantheon is pretty good. But it had a little roughness, a little balance issue and stuff like that, and I have not done that here. Every single time I've thought, like, that doesn't seem fair. Look at the context. It's not fair, right? Like, it should be hard, right? And so, like, every time it just all fits, and they've thought of this, and they have an explanation for everything, and everything's there for a purpose, and I love it, and I can't wait to explore the next one. It's gonna be hard for me to pick which one to do next. I almost want to replay this one. Having this on the board right now, I don't think I'm gonna pick this up after I'm done filming the review, so we can play again, because I enjoyed it. So that's been my review of Solomon Kane. I hope you enjoyed that kind of level of detail. I certainly enjoyed talking to you about it, and I cannot wait to see Wave 2. There's some really cool minis. You get to go to America, you get to go across Europe, you get to do all this stuff. Salem Witches, all sorts of really, really cool stuff is coming. You have the freaking devil himself in Wave 2, so it's going to get good, and I'm excited for it. I really am. I also have to paint some of these miniatures because they're really, really good too. I hope you enjoyed this review. Again, if you appreciate this level of effort, both in playing the game a lot so I know what I'm talking about and then actually telling you guys about it, do leave a like. It does help. Obviously, share if you find somebody that might be of interest in this. And let me know in the comments below if this was worth your while. Now, I had another longer videos, but hopefully it makes you very confident in the game, or at least your decision whether the game's right for you or not. Because if you don't care about theme and you're all about like a ton of different, there are reasons you may not like this, but they're not mine. I can tell you that much. All right, that's it. That's all I had. Thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys again real soon. I have another video coming out that I think you'll like a lot, so be sure to be on the lookout for that.